I was originally diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome in 2004. So when I was young, a young mom.
Wow.
And I found a really great doctor in Pittsburgh who is a naturopath, and he really helped me. But then I would get into this cycle of pushing and crashing and pushing and crashing that we're all so familiar with when
Yeah.
you have CFS. And right before I joined the program, I was the worst that I'd ever been. Like I just had like a major, major crash. And I remember like for 4 days I was in bed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing interview with Kathleen Guire. Kathleen, we are about to jump into your story about recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome, and it probably feels pretty surreal to you. You know, it's like a full circle moment because when we first met, things weren't so rosy for you. They were they were pretty tough. You know, you were in your 50s. You had 7 kids, which I was blown away by at the time. And I remember when you first started your journey with us, you know, back to health, and it wasn't easy. Before we get into like all the fun stuff and where you're at now, which I can't wait to share and hear, I'd love to know like kind of where were you before we met in terms of like, you know, age, kids, what were you doing? And we'll go from there.
Well, I was originally diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome in 2004. So when I was young, a young mom.
Wow.
And I found a really great doctor in Pittsburgh who is a naturopath, and he really helped me. But then I would get into this cycle of pushing and crashing and pushing and crashing that we're all so familiar with when
Yeah.
you have CFS. And right before I joined the program, I was the worst that I'd ever been. Like I just had like a major, major crash. And I remember like for 4 days I was in bed, like not, and I'd been in that bedridden part before, but this felt the worst that it's ever felt, to the point that it just kept stretching on and on and on. I thought, this is it. I'm going to die. Everything's going to shut down. My body's shutting down. And so I know I told you this. So I started reading a book about heaven, like get ready to go to heaven because I wasn't going to be here much longer. And then when I would have a good day, I would get out of bed, and by 9:30 a.m. I was back in bed. And then I would sleep for a couple hours and get up and then go back to bed. It was just, I mean, it was the worst. I didn't have any hope because I thought, I guess I had heard that once you get older, that if your CFS crashes get worse, that it's just, that's the end.
Mm.
Your immune system's just done for. Obviously, that's not true because here I am.
Yeah.
So when I joined the program, I was pretty hopeless. And I even had a lot of not only self doubt, but doubt like, yeah, is this going to really help me? But I was so desperate.
Yeah. Tell me, you know, when you're in bed and kind of feeling like you were dying, which is what I say to people, you know, people don't really understand, but it can feel like you're dying when the
Yes.
symptoms are so bad. What kind of symptoms were you experiencing?
Well, my joints felt like they were on fire. I was super achy. I had fevers all the time. And I just would get to this point that I was so fatigued, I was dizzy even when I was lying down.
Mm.
And like nothing would make that feeling go away. And so I would just, sleep and not really sleep. I
Mm.
mean, like my body felt like it was shutting down, but I really wasn't asleep. And my mind would be racing at the same time, like anxious thoughts all the time.
Mm.
So that's how it felt.
7 kids, married, you have a partner.
Hmm.
I can't imagine like, you know, I know it's hard enough as it is, like, and we help people, we help a lot of people in lots of different situations, lots of mums too, who've got maybe 1 or 2 kids, but I can't imagine the immense kind of pressure, unknown, the guilt with 7 kids, and I know you have grandkids as well, and having a husband. Like, what was that like? Like, were you able to have communication and conversation with your partner, or because you didn't know what was
Well,
going on? Like, yeah.
I think that for my husband, for a lot of years, going through the pushing and crashing and going to my doctor, he just didn't really believe what I was going through was as bad as it was, because I had this ability to, my husband worked out of town a lot. And so I was on my own. I was homeschooling my kids. I homeschooled them all the way through. And I would get up for a few hours and I would do school with them. And sometimes I actually did school in my room and had them all come sit on my bed. And then this is funny, I just thought of this. I just found the other day this document I made when they were teenagers that said what to do when mom can't get up.
Wow.
And it had all of these things like, get the little kids breakfast. It had this list of things for them to do. And you're right, the guilt and the shame it's overwhelming, because I felt so broken. And even before I got my diagnosis, even when I was in high school, my mom was taking me from doctor to doctor to doctor because I was still having those crashes then, but nobody knew what they were or what it came from or why I was doing that. And they were doing all of these weird things, like all of these allergy tests and glucose tests for you sit there for 5 hours and drink this goop and you're hypoglycemic. Well, all of these things, but nobody could pin down what was actually going on. And even when I started going to the doctor, Dr. Parati, it's still the work, which I've realized now, was on me. There was no like, hey, just take this. There's no medication that you just take this medication and you're better. And I know a lot of people seek that, or they seek this certain supplement's going to make them better, or this certain thing is going to make them better. And it's not true, because it truly is up to us to start first managing our symptoms, knowing what our symptoms are telling us, and then trying to work on consistency and health. Consistency over intensity. I still say that all the time.
Yeah, it's one of our mantras inside the program, which is consistency over intensity. I think, it's hard. Like most people, when they've been sick and struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome or something like that, long COVID, they have no energy. But then as soon as the day comes when the energy is there, they go all out with intensity. They try and do every single thing on the to-do list. And I know you were doing that before you joined the program. What do you think caused your chronic fatigue syndrome? Do you remember, was there a virus or anything like that was
Yeah. In fact, after I joined the program, I started asking some of my family members, because I had gotten bacterial water poisoning at a family reunion where we used to rent this big cabin and stay. And I guess some of the girls were drinking out of the well, and I was one of those girls. And we all ended up in the emergency room.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up being sick for the rest of the summer. And I think I was like 14 or 15 at the time. And that's when the cycles began. The headaches, the nausea, post-exertional malaise, because I tried to run track, and all of these things started cycling through then. So they became cycles for me. But honestly, I didn't know that other people didn't feel that way, because I was so young. I thought, if you ask an adult, hey, I'm feeling this way or feeling that way, and they're like, oh, you're a teenager, whatever, this is going on, you need more sleep. And so I didn't know until I was an adult that some of those things that I was feeling were not normal.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And was it so obviously that was the starting point, the virus, and then it sounds like having 7 kids, being a stay-at-home mum, and like being a teacher, basically, like full time, running the show, stress, combination of pushing, crashing, all of that kind of was a recipe for, chronic fatigue syndrome to occur.
Right. And then I kept getting these major viruses like mono, and, it'd go away, so it's cyclic. The viruses, when my immune system would go down, I'd get a virus. And
it was fascinating because you obviously were really proactive, going to your doctor, and you used to get lots of blood tests, and it was really, really cool. I remember it must have been maybe 9 to 12 months into the program, you went and got your bloods done again. So
Yeah.
it's like before the program and after the program, or during the program, and your blood work came back so good. Like the doctor was
Yeah.
like, "What the hell have you been doing?" And
Right.
we'll,
Right.
we'll touch on that later because that was profound. And I remember just like you posting that win, and it was like hundreds of likes. Like everyone was like, "Oh my god! Like how good's this? Like amazing!" But when you first started the program, or at least your journey with recovery, what were some of the roadblocks that were first coming up? You know what I mean? Like when you first joined, like you said, you were skeptical. Is this going to work for me? I heard that if you're older, you can't recover. Like for you, like
Right.
what was going on for you?
Well, I think that the biggest mental roadblock was that belief that it works for other people, but it's not going to work for me.
Mm,
Or, and I hate to say this, but it's true, I didn't value myself enough to like invest in this program and invest in myself. I was always on the back burner.
mm,
And I felt like if I did something for myself, I actually felt nauseous about it. I felt wrong. I felt like this is not something that I'm supposed to be doing to take care of myself. I just need to take what I'm going to get. And
mm.
if it's bad health, then I just need to accept that, which is totally wrong. So if anybody's thinking that, please don't think that. Honestly, that was the biggest roadblock for me. And I still struggle with valuing myself above others,
Mm.
above what other people in my family need from me, and putting up those boundaries. But I'm so much better about it, or I would not be sitting here.
Yeah,
I'm so much better at boundaries.
totally. I remember I had a client many, many years ago, and she wanted to join the program, but she believed it was too expensive, right?
Mm,
And so she's like, I can't afford this. Like it's too much money. It's too expensive. And I was like, that's okay. Like you can watch our free stuff if that's the case for you. And a year later, she came back, and I remember we jumped on the phone together to have an enrollment call. And I said, we spoke a year ago, like, why now? And she said, you wouldn't believe what happened, but I was sitting here the other day thinking about if my daughter was in my situation,
mm,
getting chills down my spine thinking about this. If my daughter
mhm.
was as sick as I am and has been for the last 10 years, I would have signed her up to this program 10 years ago. Like that. I wouldn't even think about it. It wouldn't be a second thought. It was like, if she's sick
Right,
and she needs help, I'm going to invest in it. And then she had
right,
this epiphany and realized, oh my God, like, what am I teaching my daughter if I can't even invest in myself? And I would do it for her in a heartbeat. And she realized that she needs to put herself or treat herself like she would treat her daughter equally, at least to show her and teach her daughter, mum's going to put herself first as well.
yeah,
It was actually so incredible. She went on to recover. It was a really cool story because she went on to do the program. She fully committed. She exactly like you, like just did everything she had to do in order to get better and got her life back. But I don't think it would have happened if she didn't self-value herself. Like that.
right,
Yeah. It's too hard. Like you just can't. Like you're just going to keep tripping yourself up, right? Because you're never going to do anything that you need to do in order to move forwards.
right, exactly. And if you have this idea in the back of your mind is this is happening to me, so I need to accept it. And it's like, but why? Why did I need to accept it? And I think that another stumbling block for me is my mom died pretty young,
Mm.
and she had a lot of health issues. So I kind of just thought, well, you know what? That's the way it is.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay, I
it
see.
doesn't have to be that way.
No, no.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I love Craig Harper, one of my first ever mentors, actually. He was the one that inspired me when I was going through recovery. Even though he was a motivational speaker, he had no idea about chronic fatigue syndrome. He used to say, "Oh, but my genetics, it's just there's nothing I can do. It's just my genetics."
Hmm.
Whether someone's overweight. He used to help a lot of people with weight loss. And, those types of people would come in, oh, I just can't lose weight because it's in my genes, it's just who I am. And he would say, and what choices can you make? Does that mean that you can't stop eating the chocolate cake for breakfast that you're having every day and the oversized pizza that you're having at night? Is that got nothing to do with your weight loss? It's just all genes. And you know, it was all about choice. Like you can you can manipulate your entire life to enhance your health and well-being, not the opposite.
Right.
Mm.
Because there's epigenetics that we know
Yes.
a lot more about now, that you can change your genetics by making lifestyle choices, and it all starts with your thinking. Like you have to think it first, and then there has to be an action that follows. Because if you have so many limiting beliefs that you can't move forward, and a limiting belief, like you were just talking about, is it's in my genetics and this is the way it's going to be and I can't change that. That's a limiting belief. So then you won't move forward, you'll stay stuck.
I think it's so hard. This conversation's so hard because on one hand, like I know how much you struggled and suffered in bed. And if I said to you, Kathleen, you just got to think more positive, you'd tell me to, you'd probably say to
Oh,
not
well, I would use some words. I would
yeah,
use some words.
me too. Because it's not about positive thinking. This is the problem. Like,
No.
this is the problem that most people don't talk about, is like there's so much fluff on the internet. It's like, you just need to think more positive. Like your attitude sucks. And it's like, yeah, attitude's important, but it's not about the positive psychology that makes the difference. It's about seeing
Right.
where you start. Like chronic fatigue syndrome isn't a mental problem.
Right.
I think this is the issue. Like there's this, you know, when you're going through chronic fatigue syndrome recovery, almost like you could feel attacked by someone saying you need to change your mindset or you've got some limiting beliefs. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not really about that. Like if you think about it, it's like chronic fatigue syndrome is so physical and neurological, like you said, like the achy
Yes.
joints and the muscles and everything. But laying in bed thinking that it's not possible for you isn't going to equate to a behavior or an action that's going to change your life. And that
Mm-hmm.
was the case for you until you realized, oh, actually, you know, what would my life be like if I didn't believe that it was just my mum's genetics and I could potentially take a little bit of ownership in my own life, and how would that feel? How did you make those changes? Like what flipped it for you?
I think some of the coaching calls that we just talking about being self-aware, and like what was going on in my mind, what was going on in my body. And like Dr. Caroline Leaf talks about, you can't just help self-awareness. You can't just say, I feel angry, which is where I was. I was so angry that my life was being taken from me. That's the way I felt about it. But then you have to move on. Why are you feeling angry? What's going on beside that? And for me, it took a lot of like journaling out my feelings and then editing what I was writing down. And sometimes it would be just so exhausting to do that. It's like, I've got a little bit of pocket of energy right now. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to wipe the kitchen counters down, or am I going to sit down and journal some things out? Because wiping the kitchen counters, okay, I'm really picky about keeping everything clean in my kitchen. And I'm only saying that because sometimes that would stop me from doing the real work, because I thought I have a little bit of energy. But I felt better if I started journaling my feelings, putting the past in its place, because trauma has a lot to do. A lot of people that have traumatic beginnings, like I did, end up having chronic fatigue. It's just one of those things, they go hand in hand. And I needed to and here's a funny thing, Toby, you're going to laugh about this. You know what I do, being a trauma informed teacher and speaker, is I had someone say to me before I joined your program, well, all of those things that you say that we need to do with our kiddos and you teach us, why aren't you doing those for yourself?
Mm.
Like reframing your beliefs, making sense of and peace with your past. Not that that's going to just wipe away all of the physical feelings and change everything in 1 second and you're better. I just need to deal with my past. It's just part of the process.
100%.
For me, it was part of the process. I had to do that.
Yeah, like one of my favorite sayings is like, you can't drive forward looking in the rear view mirror.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes.
very hard. Like imagine driving just like this the whole time. Like it's just super hard. Like, and so many people stay stuck in the past, and it's just a memory of the past. And it's like, let's just create new memories and start working towards what you truly do want in your life, and
Right.
momentum will take the shift, and then you'll act and do behaviors, and physiologically your body will change over time. And
Right. And writing down, what do you see? What does your best day look like? I did those so many times. Like, what does it look like to be well? What would I do? What do I do first when I get up in the morning? What would I do second? And it's so funny because all of those times that I did those writings over and over and over again, at that time, I wasn't doing those things, but now I do them every day. Like, and these are kind of physical things too. Like, get
totally.
up and the first thing I do is fill up my quart jar with water and I drink water, and I exercise in the morning, and I walk and I do all these things. And like just last week, I logged 38 miles hiking and running and took my kayak out. And it's like, I don't even think about that stuff now. And I only thought about that because I was going to be on here. I'm
Yeah,
going to make
exactly.
sure I
Yeah.
know what I did this past week.
That's incredible.
And those started, and I will go to the walking for a second because I love to walk. I love to be outside. Gets my brain going, it refreshes me. But when I was in the program and I needed to start walking again, my daughter, who is a physical trainer, came over and we would walk back and forth in front of my house.
Wow.
And it would be like 10 minutes at a time. And I would just literally be on the verge of tears. Like, I don't understand. It was only like a year ago that I'd been running 5Ks. And then all of a sudden I had this huge crash. And she was like, Mommy, it only takes 2 weeks to lose that cardiovascular strength, and your lung strength goes at 2 weeks and it's gone. So then you got to start over. So she was having me do these little tiny, and I mean tiny, interval training things where I would walk for 5 minutes and then walk back down the hill and then
Rest.
breathe and
Yes.
do it. And she's like, no, don't do it too long.
Mm.
So those kinds of things, I had to start at ground zero again.
Talk to me about your mindset there, because I think so many people say it's easy to do more than it is to do less.
Yes.
Like it's easy to push myself beyond where I'm at versus actually holding myself back and being more consistent day to day. As you said before, it's like, this doesn't make sense. Like I normally can run 5 kilometers. Like I should just push myself. How did you, was being in the program the thing that helped you stay accountable and like know that, consistency over intensity and step by step you're going to get there, like progress months, maintenance months, like what?
Yeah, definitely. Because my habit in the past, when I would crash, was what you were talking about earlier. As soon as I had like a good day or a good hour, then I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
going to go run. And
Yeah.
then I would, and then not be able to do anything for 2 days.
Yeah.
And, that consistency. And I remember even asking in one of the coaching sessions, like what the difference between being disciplined and being too driven. And I can't even remember which words I used, but it's like
Yep, I do remember that.
I have this inner drive all the time. And some people call it perfectionism. And it's like, you got to do the best. You always have to do the best. You always have to. But then it was like, that's just self sabotage. If you feel like you have to go overboard, like, okay, I can walk for 15 minutes today, but no, I'm going to walk 30 because
Mm,
I have to walk 30. Looks
mm,
ridiculous to walk 15 minutes. Well, it doesn't look ridiculous if for the next 2 days you can't do anything. So yeah, being in the program really helped me with that consistency and staying on target. And I remember one of the big things I've learned, and I'm still learning it, is, the things that energize me and the things that drain me. I had never thought about that in my life. And I think that's very common with moms. I was talking to a couple moms at a Bible study a couple weeks ago, and they're like, why did it take us so long to figure out what we're really, really good at? And I said, because we had to do all the things that didn't matter if we're good at, like washing the dishes and cooking the food and doing the laundry. And
mm.
then our kids get to a certain age and we're like, hey, I think I have some gifts and talents. And so that was a biggie for me, which things really energized me. And I remember somebody in the program had made a little chart and she had highlighted, these are the things that give me energy and these are the things that drain me. So I did it. I was like, I had never thought about that before. And so now I try to keep that balance, because the thing is, we have to work on our health for the rest of our life, no matter if we were, if you never joined a program or you don't do
Whether you're
any, you
healthy or not
have to.
healthy, chronic fatigue or no chronic fatigue, like health is a forever
Right.
thing. Yeah, totally.
Right.
Oh man, this is so good. So helpful. I wanna go back and circle on what you spoke about before. Not perfectionism, that drive, like the drive. I think that's really hard. Like
Yeah.
you're a driven woman. Like most people that I meet, like people with chronic fatigue syndrome, they're not lazy people. Like they're just not. Like I've never met
Right.
a
They're
lazy
not.
person, and I've met thousands of them. Like I've never met a lazy person who's like, oh, I just got chronic fatigue because I just lay on the couch all day. Like it's just not
Right.
right. They're always like, I had goals and dreams, and I was like doing all this stuff and pushing myself
Hmm.
literally 99% of the time. Like, what did you? I actually remember the coaching call now about the drive. How do you repurpose the drive in
Yeah.
recovery so it's not the thing that takes over recovery, basically.
Right.
I don't know. Like, was there any kind of things that you did to repurpose that drive to recommit to yourself in your recovery when you did have to hold yourself just a little bit back so you're not doing these pushing and crashing and obviously over time, which you were able to do, which was to build your capacity. And as you were building your capacity, I remember you went kayaking, you started walking again, you started, basically integrating back into being a mum and looking after the kids and the grandkids
Hmm.
and all that jazz, and eventually starting your own business. Like initially, how did you repurpose the drive when physically at the capacity that you couldn't do what you wanted to do all the time? Like how did you interweave that purpose or the drive back into your recovery?
I think one of the ways that I repurposed my drive was the other thing that I was talking about, finding out what gives you energy and what takes away energy, knowing that and interweaving those things throughout my day. And then also, I started just setting a timer. Like when I could start working at my desk again and start writing again, and it's like I would be tempted. I'm going to sit here for 3 hours and write, and I would
Bang it
set a
all out.
timer.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I don't set a timer anymore, but I already have those habits so ingrained in me
Don't need
that if
to.
I'm sitting and working at my desk for an hour, I'm going to get up and I'm going to have a little dance party. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go out and walk some laps and then come back. So it was just taking that drive and saying, you know what, my job right now is to get healthy. So
Mm,
my job right now is I'm going to stop and make a green smoothie before I go on to my next task. And
yeah.
that was really hard for me. I didn't realize until my last child moved out, which was like 7 months ago, that those were the people that made me feed myself.
Mm,
So then I had to start saying, well, now I have to make a menu just for me, and
mm.
I have to prepare food for myself. And so just keeping that schedule. And I was very adamant about it at first, like, okay, this time I'm going to have my smoothie, and then I'm going to work for this time, and then I'm going to take a rest, and now I don't have to do that anymore. But that's what I took my drive to do. I used it for that, to implement a schedule.
We have
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so good, which leads me into like two things. Like one, inside the program, we have a specific training called the Perfect Imperfect Daily Routine, and it's a new training, but it's one of our longest ones because I believe that routine and structure is so vital to recovery that
Hmm.
everyone misses it. They're like, oh, brain
Yes.
retraining, and it's like you can think all the thoughts you want and visualize all the things, but like you need to start reintegrating back into life. And so a routine and structure is going to do
Yes.
that, whether you're a 1 out of 10 in energy or a 7 out of 10 in energy, because it'll
Right.
change over time. And you've got a healthy person schedule. The second training, which I know you switched your focus to, that I think is really important to talk about, is symptom focused versus health focused. And like
Mm,
it's one of my I think it's one of the most
yeah.
important topics that like everybody needs to understand, and everybody who recovers does this, is
Hmm.
they switch their focus from symptom focus, which is like, oh my god, I'm feeling this and this symptom's happening and why is this happening, and I don't like, I need to
Right.
understand, like, why is this like, has anyone else experienced this? And it's like this snowball effect that literally stays in the loop of sickness, really. But
Yes.
then switching the focus to health focus, which is exactly what you did, which I love that thing of what does a healthy person do? Even though you weren't feeling healthy, it's like thinking about, well, how
Yes.
does a healthy person act? How does a healthy person respond? When a healthy person gets a cold and a flu, what do?
Hmm.
I know when you started, like you were very heavily inundated with symptoms. Like it was, you were,
Yes.
like, so how did you go
Yes.
from switching to the health focus? Was it just being in an environment that was health focused? Was it having permission, me telling you,
Yes.
hey, like that's not going to help you anymore, like this is what we need to do?
It's yeah, it's the combination of those things, like going to the coaching calls and watching the videos and being like, okay, my job right now is to get healthy. And sitting here thinking about, oh, my heart rate's only 41 right now, or, all the things that we do. Like, wait, I think my throat is hurting, and you get into those symptoms and you're like, what's going to relieve this? Should I make tea? Should I move? And I remember I've done a lot of study now about health and the body. And it's like one of the things I learned, how we freak out about feeling like nauseous or achy because we get up and move. It's like, well, okay, the lymph nodes have no drainage system. So even if you're sitting in your bed and you start doing some arm exercises, you're going to feel nauseous and feel yucky. That's a good thing. Drink some water. Like figuring out your symptoms is not going to just be like, oh my goodness, what pill do I need to take? But knowing how the body works, knowing some of that really helped alleviate those fears and just being like, you know what? I felt like this before. And my job right now is to get healthy. So what's next on my list? And
Mm.
that's how I started approaching it. It's like, this is my full-time job. I have permission. I think I told you guys, like I took time off of writing. I took time off of everything. Obviously, anything I would have written during that time anyway wouldn't have made any sense.
I tell you what, though, but that the journey made for a good story after. We'll talk about what you're up to these days. I know you've basically written 3 books in the last little while, which is wild. Yeah, I think it's like it's kind of like I said, it's hard. Like I think you don't realize it, but one of the things that you did, and you probably don't really realize this too, but in order to be health focused, you have to create safety first.
Yeah.
And having a baseline is kind of what creates safety, because the
Yes.
baseline is about stopping the pushing and crashing, and that is, it's not good for the brain or the body. Basically, the brain detects threats, and so if you keep pushing yourself and feeling horrible, that's not a good safety sign for the brain or the body. But when you do things appropriately, like you did, like you were doing slow walks, you were eating well, you had a good routine and structure, everything was appropriate. You weren't sprinting up hills and depleting your
Mhm.
energy stores when you didn't have the energy to do so. So I feel like that created the safety net for you to then go, I can be health focused,
Yeah.
like
Right.
I can respond versus react, and for me, it's no surprise, like when you posted that win about your blood test coming back really, really good, it doesn't, like, I
Hmm.
love it. And it also doesn't surprise me, because as one gets healthier, their symptoms decrease. Like you can't
Right.
have health and have symptoms at the same time. And so this is why
Right.
we're so health focused at CFS Health, because it's like, as you get healthier, your symptoms decrease. Now, if we stayed symptom
Hmm.
focused, it's just a tug of war the whole time, and it's just
Yeah.
nothing's gonna change. So
Right.
we've spoken about mindset, definitely limiting beliefs, like unlocking that first really was the key part. Doing the physical stuff, number 2,
Hmm.
because that led into 2 in terms of like baseline, restorative movement, nutrition,
Right.
boundary, like a lot of emotional work, journaling, boundaries,
Right.
finding your energy gainers and energy drainers and sticking to them. When you started to get healthy and you got your blood test back, and it's like, oh my God, like this is, that was freaking amazing, like winning lottery,
I know.
basically. Tell us
I
about
know.
that experience. So you went to the doctor. Well, you
Well, and
in.
I'll tell you, I'm just going to add this because I haven't talked to you since then. I went back in June and got all that same blood work done again, and it was even better.
Wow.
And my doctor is like, your heart is perfect. You're not at risk for stroke or anything. I was, before that, I'd been getting into a junctional rhythm. I don't want to go into all those symptoms, but and it's like, he said, your cortisol level is perfect. And he said, and I haven't seen your cortisol level this perfect forever. Like all of these things were even better, not like tons better because I was already better. But yeah, it's just, and to me, it's like I would have this, huh?
I've just found the photo of you.
Oh my goodness.
Who's that in the photo?
Oh yeah, with my grandson. Oh my goodness.
And you said it's a little bit of a long post, but all you said was, I had comprehensive labs done recently and they came back better than I've ever had. Kathleen from USA. Toby and the CFS Health team asked me to reflect on my wins since beginning the program mid-July. Physics, do you want me to read this out? Like you might even.
Sure.
You said, physically, I'm able to do Pilates in the morning, walk, swim, kayak some afternoons. I'm not killing myself trying to do intense workouts anymore. I'm enjoying the outdoors and just moving. I've been to host 2 harvest days for my family and enjoy them. That sounds fun. That's a photo of my daughter took of me playing in the leaves with my grandson. Mentally, I've had a lot of mind shifts and sometimes they shift back. You're human. I'm moving away from perfectionism and embracing myself for who I am. Oh, I'm getting teary.
Oh my gosh. You're triggering me.
Why is this happening? I always cry on these talks. It's just so special because it's like it's just I've seen your journey and it's just cool to see. I know I have the gifts and a purpose for this season in my life that were different than when I was homeschooling my kids. I'm telling guilt goodbye when I put up my boundaries. I'm enjoying my life so much more, even when I have a slight dip. I'm pursuing something new with my writing. I'm still writing books, but I'm also working on building a business to help other writers pursue their passion. I realize there is always an exchange. Balance is a myth. I'll never turn into a superhero with infinite energy. So I choose more carefully now what to invest my energy and time in. I'm working through my values, the values models program with Toby, and working on my 3-year plan, which is amazing. Last year, I bought a book on heaven because I thought I was going to die. I wanted to instead of living the way I was, but not anymore. The book was good, but I'm not ready to go yet. I have a purpose here now. Medically, I was diagnosed with CFS in 2004. I had comprehensive labs done recently. They came back better than ever. No viruses, thyroid's working really well, heart rate's working really well, cortisol levels are great, liver is awesome. I'm better on paper than I've been in my whole life.
Oh my gosh, that's what I was going to say. It was like seeing the paper was like, are you sure this is for me? Are you sure this wasn't, when I got the lab results back? And it's just like, even since then, I feel way better than I did even then.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fall harvest day, the kids were asking me about that. We have it coming up in 2 weeks. We still do those. Like today, I took my grandkids hiking. I ended up carrying a 45-pound one of them for a mile. And, I just do it. And oh my gosh. Just to even think about, I'm glad I didn't have time to think today because just to think about talking to you about what I was like at the beginning of the program is triggering because I don't ever want to go back there. And I know what I need to do. And I did want to say one thing about when I first started putting those boundaries up.
Please.
With my family and friends when because you know what it's like, but you can just do this. You can just rest the next day. You can just do this. And I remember sometimes someone would ask me to do something and I would say yes. And then all of a sudden I would get a sore throat or a headache. And it was like, I'm trying to think of the name of that book. But anyway, I remember learning that if you don't start speaking up for yourself, and if you start just letting the circumstances boss you around, then your body is going to say, hey, let's get a sore throat because I don't really want to do that. And the funny thing is, the sore throat would go away a couple hours later. It wasn't like I was really sick. It was just like, oh, I don't really want to do that. I need to just say no.
Mm.
And I don't want to make it all about, the symptoms, but that's the way it was for me. And I started recognizing that. So now I just say, no, I don't want to do that. Or, you guys go ahead without me.
Mm.
So yeah,
That's
that's been a
pretty,
game changer.
yeah,
But yeah, that blood work and that, change in my health, I was in such shock at first, like, is that even me?
mm.
And now I look back at how I was when I joined the program and I think, was that even me?
Yeah, well, that's right. Exactly. Like,
Yeah,
you become a new person. Like you don't stay the same person as you were. You're still who you are,
right,
but in essence, but you change because change is required in order to elevate out of that anyway.
right.
Where are you now? Like, tell me, like, just because you're a passionate woman. So you were saying that you've got one book with the publishers right now, a fiction book.
Yes. It's a new fiction book. And then I have two other fiction books that are ready for editing. I've been working with a cover designer. Actually, she lives in Australia and
Oh
she's
wow,
been really
cool,
great.
amazing.
And then I also have my website, Trauma Informed Parenting, and I have a podcast and I do workshops. I do a live one once a month in our community about informing parents, like how trauma affects the kiddos and what you can do. And one of the things that you were saying is like, I teach about felt safety all the time. That's like calms the cortisol level, gets the amygdala to be quiet. And so, yeah, I had to apply that to myself. So I write nonfiction as well.
Mm.
My latest book is How to Have Peace When Your Kids Are in Chaos.
Wow.
And
Oh,
yeah,
that
it's
sounds
all about
fantastic.
how trauma affects kiddos and different practical tips you can use, and even some stuff for the parents, like how to make sense of and peace with your past and reframe your beliefs, not
Mm.
only about yourself, but about your parenting. Because traditional parenting doesn't work with kiddos that have trauma histories and neurodiversity. So that's one of my big things. It's like always talking about that. And whenever you become a trauma informed parenting, the first step is reframing your beliefs, maybe about parenting, maybe about your expectations, making sense of and peace with your past, learn the science, apply the science to yourself and your children, and then change the behaviors, yourself, your behaviors, and your kids. And then there will be more peace in your home. And that's pretty much the blueprint for that book.
Wow, sounds like a bestseller to me. I love the title, and I think I have said to you before how important the work that you do is. I think it's really, really, really fantastic, and yeah, it's just incredible. It's just cool to see you to create your own change. Like what you're doing, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and just what a legacy. Like think about your kids and the grandkids internally too. Like I think that to me is really inspiring. You know,
Yeah.
you putting your purpose, at least equal to everybody else's, and I think they'll remember that for a very, very long time. Kathleen, before we wrap up, two quick questions. One,
Okay.
someone at home is listening to this right now. They don't have hope. They're probably thinking what you thought at the start. It's not possible for me. I'm different. Just one bit of, word of advice for the people at home who are struggling.
I think that I would say to that person, you're on this earth for a reason and you have a purpose. And part of your purpose is valuing yourself first, being able to say, I'm valuable enough to get better. And it can happen. It can happen because that was the thing that I said was holding me back. And if you value yourself, then that value is going to have a ripple effect on those people around you. And they will, your family will value you more. They'll value themselves more. So just, I'm kind of meandering around, but
Yeah.
value yourself. Consider yourself valuable enough to invest in your own health.
So good. And for anyone who wants to get help or is thinking about joining the program, from your own experience, would you recommend it? What would you say about that for those people? Because there are, there's people who really want to do it, but they're like, it might not work for me. I've tried everything, I don't want to fail again. Like, what was your fears? And two, what would you say, to someone who wants to join?
I would say I'm a researcher at heart. I love to dig into the science, and I was already digging into the science a lot. And doing that alone wasn't enough. I needed a community. I needed coaching. I needed to hear some things that I had never heard before in a supported group where people were saying, this is what you need to do next. Like I think that I did your free program about pushing and crashing, finding your
Yeah.
baseline.
Yeah. The free training.
That's what, like, okay. I was like, I need this. I need them to help me with this because I cannot figure it out by myself.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially, I'm just going to say, because I'm a mom and I'm a woman, I think that we struggle with this more than anything is like, oh, I don't need the help. I have to do it all by myself, or I don't deserve the help. And I did deserve the help. I did need the help. I did need the community. I needed the coaching. I needed to be called out on the carpet sometimes so that I could move forward into true health. So if you're doubting, like, should I do this? Should I not do this? You should do it. You should do it because you're worth it and your health is worth it. And I know what it's like to feel like you can't even get out of bed. And I don't want anybody else to live that way.
No.
I just don't.
Yeah. Well, that's why I started this whole thing, because when I went through it, it was so painful and excruciating that I was like, I do not want to let anyone else have to go through what my family went through, and so that's how, the mission and the vision was born many, many moons ago.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You're amazing, such an inspiration, and I can't wait for your book to get out into the world. I think that's going to be absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Thanks for your time, Kathleen. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I hope this video was really helpful for you. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and feel free to leave a comment. What was your takeaway, your insight from today's video? It's really helpful to actually write your learnings down. We seem to embed it better and it seems to help us move forwards with life. Here are 3 ways we can help you right now whenever you're ready. The first way is make sure you add yourself into our free information recovery group on Facebook. We'll leave a link in the description below. It's a really supportive, encouraging place. There's no negative venting. You can ask questions to other people. There's something like 8,000 people in there right now. And I'm sure by the time you're watching this video, there's even more. So go over there right now. We share success stories. We share our latest free trainings that come to the public. And we always share upcoming information about upgrades inside our program. And also when we offer free webinars or free information nights that can further help you with your own recovery. The second way we can help you, which is one of my favorite, is through all our free trainings. We're going to leave a link in the description with our favorite free trainings that we know can help you start your recovery, whether that's through our baseline training, which will help you stop pushing and crashing, our 3 stages of recovery to figure out exactly where you're at and know what to do next, or my favorite, which is our guest panel workshop, which was actually exclusive for our members. It was so damn good that I actually asked them, can we share this to the public? They all said yes, all 5 of them. So thank you, past members. They share their 5 recovery secrets and it's really powerful. There's tears, there's aha moments, there's real key insight and inspiration. And so whether you're a 1 out of 10 and you're really struggling right now, or whether you're further along in your recovery journey and you're integrating back into life, we have you covered. The third way we can help you is through our actual paid online recovery program, the Mentorship Recovery Program. And if you are interested in getting proper help, a holistic comprehensive plan, professional coaching from the best coaches in the world, whether that's with mindset, movement, nutrition, restorative movement, reconditioning, integrating back into life, integrative medicine, baseline, structure, routine, accountability, all things health and life. Feel free to apply for the program today. All you need to do is click on the form, cfshealth.com/form, fill out the short 2 to 3 minute form application, and the team will be in touch with all the details that you need to know about the program via email. So make sure you check your spam folder for all the free trainings. If you've sent through an application, please be patient. My team are real people, okay? They're not robots. So if we don't get back to you within seconds or hours, it's okay. We will get back to you. If you don't hear from the team within 2 to 3 days, that means that it's basically gone to spam or junk and it's gone missing. So please send a follow-up email to the team at info@cfshealth.com. If you have any questions, go check it out. But I would highly recommend adding yourself into the free group right now. Go click on that link in the description. Go download all the free trainings. Honestly, the whole reason why this whole thing started is because when I went through this myself, it was so painful and so excruciating that I didn't want anyone else to have to go through it. And some of these free trainings are so damn valuable. Back then, I would have paid thousands of dollars for. We've had so many comments and emails and posts saying, oh my God, the baseline training was a game changer for me. Toby, I've been doing this now for 3 months and I'm feeling so much better. My symptoms are decreasing. I've got more stamina. I've got more energy. I'm able to do more things. So, whether you're learning from us and consuming our content through our free format, I'm so stoked. Whether that's in our paid program, I don't really care. Either way, all I want to make sure is that you are moving forwards. You are starting to really implement this work. And that's really what it's all about. Once we implement, we make change and we start to move forwards. Sending you a ton of love. Of course, feel free to consume as much of the YouTube videos as you like. There's so many really, really great ones, new and old. Sending you a ton of love and speak to you very, very soon. All the best for now.